Oh, shaky camera. Okay. Oh, we're recording. Babe. I know. John, babe. Babe.
Good morrow, adventurers, and welcome to our podcast, the show that discusses all things Dungeons and Dragons and other realms of fantasy at some point, but right now focusing on Dungeons and Dragons. We are your co-hosts, Mandi and Katie. Tonight, we are discussing one of my absolute favorite things, and something both of us have some experience with. Dre and Adrena, Ariadne and Eldarian. That's right, I'm talking in-game romance. How to do it tastefully, the funny things that can happen, how to do it well, and honestly, is it necessary to gameplay? Maybe not is it necessary, but why does it happen and does it need to happen? Or I guess, does it have a place in game?
Yeah.
I think there's an interesting discussion to be had there. So Katie, what do you think?
First of all, I love in-game romances. I think there's so much fun, and I think it can add a lot of depth to your character. I guess it depends on what kind of in-game romance you're having. If it's just with like some NPC, it's going to be different than, if you have a romantic interest in like someone else's character in game.
I feel like it's been in every campaign.
Yeah, we gotta have romance in every single one. I think
we have. But I think that's only natural when you're playing with your spouse.
Right.
Or maybe we're just our group is just disgustingly in love with our spouses.
That's a good
which
thing.
Is not it's a good thing. But I think, I've told a lot of friends, like, it's hard to play a game like this and not flirt with your spouse. Like, it really, really difficult. So it's just a fun layer to the game. And for me, it adds just another layer to my character. And it's kind of fun. Like, we've talked a couple times, not in depth, right? Because we don't want to plan things and have it be organic. But like, I asked him when we started playing, like, do you want at some point there to be that back and forth between Cyrus and Farah? Like, is that something you're wanting? And he's like, yeah, that's why I'm playing an elf. But it's also just fun gameplay, honestly. And I think, like, I always have fun when, like, especially like your character's having like a romance moment. It's fun for me as like my character, but also just me in general to tease you about what's happening. It just adds, you're telling a human story, right? And it's part of the human experience. And I say human loosely, right? Like, I know I'm an elf, you're a half orc, all these things, but it's part of just life, right? To have these romances, whether or not they're successful, whether or not they're fruitful.
Right.
That's a weird phrase to use.
Well, like, if it
anyway,
it's productive, if it, I don't know. Yeah.
See,
that's good.
Yeah, sure. We're going to say that.
What's the word? If it progresses anywhere.
It progresses. Like, if you end up somewhere, right? That's kind of where it is in my head. But I think it can be an important part of gameplay, and it doesn't have to be a huge storyline.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's the right way to do it, though, to not have it be a huge storyline. I mean, there are some times where it can be like the whole point of a session, just to, like, I don't know. There's a couple funny things that have happened in game, right? Where, like, you had a whole love triangle moment, which was like my favorite thing that's ever happened.
Oh my God.
It's a love triangle between your husband, playing both people. And it was the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like,
it was the worst place to be ever.
I thought it was great.
In game, yeah, me and then my husband, but like, it was like his personality broken in half and like each different guy. And so first of all, I'm like, okay, well, I like you, obviously, because I'm married to you. And I like both these personalities because it's both you.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
It was so difficult to have to like choose one of them. Yeah, that was, oh my gosh, stressful beyond stressful. Also, like you had mentioned, you and Jay talk about it a little bit beforehand, like, are we going to maybe ever eventually have a romance at some point with our characters?
Yeah, like, is it on the table or do we just want to explore something different?
Right. We do the same thing. If you do, for instance, like our situation, where you and your husband and me and my husband is the DM, obviously he's going to be the one who's got the NPCs that are maybe flirting with other people. So if you are in a relationship with someone and you're DMing or you're playing with them, it is always good to have that conversation like, hey, you know, are you okay with my character if they're going to flirt with like another character? I know I asked you with your campaign, like, if my character were to flirt with your husband, are you okay with that? I think those are good conversations to have just so that everyone is comfortable. I know like with Chris,
absolutely,
we've talked about it. Like whenever he's going to have like an NPC, he doesn't tell me what's going to happen. But like if he's going to flirt with like you, or I mean, obviously I don't care if he's flirting with like John or Jay. It doesn't do anything for me. But like if it's with you, like he does it in a way where he's not like, and this is just what Chris does, what our DM does, but he'll do it in a way where he's not like actually saying like first person, all of these things. Sometimes he'll just say like, oh, well, you know, he's going to like, he kisses her or he flirts or whatever. And so it kind of like,
it puts a boundary around it. And I think that that's necessary, especially like, because you never want to be disrespectful of people at the table. So that's a good call out too. Like, have that conversation, and as a DM to have that conversation and ask your players, what are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? Like, what's on your no-no list? Yes. And this is what's on my no-no list, right? Yes. Like I have the rule at my table, like assault is on my no-no list, right? Like that's not going to happen at my table. I don't care if it happens in real life. It's not going to happen at my table.
No.
So if like somebody flirting with your spouse is a no-no, cool. That's fine. We just need to know, and everybody at the table needs to know, right? If you don't want it in your game, it's not integral. You don't have to have it, but I think it does add a layer to your game, right? These are real. In my head, my characters are real, and I will hear nothing else about it. They take on their own personalities, and there are a lot of times where I'll think through it. I'm like, Feyre doesn't want to do that. I wish Feyre would do that because that seems like a better idea.
It is,
but. And they're all adults, right? They're going to have these feelings, or at one point have had these feelings.
Yes.
Right. Absolutely. Or have the possibility for it. And I think it's important. It adds a layer to your character, and it gives you another area to kind of explore and play with. Even if you don't bring it to actual gameplay, I think it's important to even like think that through when you're creating your character, to be like, okay, have they ever been in love before? Have they dated? Have they had relationships? I mean, maybe don't tell your DM that they've had relationships, because maybe it'll come back to bite you later.
It will.
Yeah. There's also what's more motivating to a character or to a person than love, right? We do so many things for love every day. Why wouldn't you, as a character, when you're playing, be motivated by your love of somebody else? It doesn't necessarily have to be your family. It could be that you are in love with X, Y, and Z person, and they're the reason why you're making all these choices. And Ariadne, there was a huge motivation for her from that character in a lot of ways. Not necessarily in that I love you and I want to save you. It's more, I loved you and I made bad choices because of it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So it adds I think it can add so much layers. So in-player romance can be really fun. It can add you can kind of, for lack of a better word, spice up your relationship, right? Because you're getting to flirt in different ways, and just kind of wear a different hat, you know?
Well, for lack of, I'm sure I'm going to need comments for this, but legit role playing.
Yeah. It's not wrong. Well, and it can be fun to do with your spouse. Like Jason and I have a game, The Last Gasp, putting a plug in for that. It's a 2-player role play game that Darrington Press, Critical Roles, game production company put out. And we absolutely love it. It's so much fun. And we get to it's just a ball.
That's awesome.
It's really, really fun to do, but it's just a different way to connect. It reminds me of, I obviously didn't marry this person, but I did play a love interest of my high school boyfriend at one point. And that was just really fun to do together, right? You're exploring emotions and doing all of that, but it's the same thing in D&D, right? It's just, you're exploring different aspects of your character. So whether or not, going back to the question of do I think it's necessary for gameplay? No, but I think it's I think you're missing the boat if you haven't at least, you're missing an opportunity if you haven't at least thought through this aspect of your character. Because even if you're like, my character doesn't believe in romance. Okay, you've already thought about it though. Right? Yeah. Like you've made a choice that your character is not interested in that. So you've thought about it and you're going to have to play to that at some point.
Yeah.
Because give me a DM that has not hit on a player at some point as an NPC.
Absolutely. It's going to happen.
It's going to happen. So you're going to have to make a strategy and how you're going to respond to it.
Exactly. And if you have made that choice, okay, but why? Why aren't you interested? Did you get like crushed at one point? Like love is a motivator. Like you said, it is. And all of us, I mean, we're built that way. We're hardwired. That's why we have hormones.
I mean, and like, not only that, like we're built that way to make connections or to avoid connections. And so much of Dungeons and Dragons is making connections, right? Like we've talked a couple times about how like our current group is just now coming together really as a group. Like even Jason and I, like we've had to, like we tried really hard to not instantly come together as a pairing because that didn't feel organic. So now we're kind of going into a spot where we can work together. And I feel like last session, he and I worked together really well and it's starting to come together more, but that happens after your group makes connections. Like you have a dad and you love your dad. I love my dad. Boom, connection, you know? It's all part of the living experience. And I think if you don't include that in your game, you're missing something. Also, husbands, wives, if you're playing with your partner, you are missing such an opportunity to make them feel special.
Yeah.
Like, you want to see your wife smile, hit on her as an orc. It's hilarious and funny and all of these things.
I agree. And I think we like barely touched on it a little bit a few minutes ago. In addition to like the romantic love, there's also sisterly, brotherly, fatherly, whatever, which you can also touch on. I know our DM, Chris, he's done a lot with you specifically on your daddy. All of your dads
always
like, hit the emotions hardcore in the waterworks. Oh gosh. He's also done the same thing with like brotherly, like that love. And then like in this campaign, for instance, we just found out that John's character is my great
your grandpappy,
something granddad. Yeah. And which was fun because I was like, oh, whoa, I don't know how I feel about this. Like, because obviously I had no idea. So I got to think like, how do I feel about it as the human being? Then how does my character feel about it? And it's fun because it created these emotions that I did not know were there. And like you said, it just goes down into more layers and it just creates these moments, these characters that it all is what creates the character and the story.
I mean, absolutely. It takes it from being a character sheet.
Yes.
To being like this fully fledged out person living in your brain. I promise I'm not schizophrenic or anything. That, you know, has their own thoughts and feelings and emotions and also off topic. But I have this thing in my head where I want Aelva to just randomly start calling fifth random grandfather names like, hey, Pop, Grandpappy, just randomly all over. It would be so funny.
Oh my goodness.
It's so funny.
Oh boy.
Anyway, but you're absolutely right. Like, I know we're talking about romantic love, but love is such a motivator for any character at any time. Even if you think it's not, I think our motivations can all be really tied back to love.
It's so fun.
When is it not fun to watch your friend fall in love all over again?
Yeah.
You know, because like you and I have talked about this where like, I wish we had been college roommates.
I do too.
Like it would have been so much fun to like watch you and Chris go through that courtship and watch you guys like fall in love. Yeah. Like, and for me, it was like such a blessing and just something special for me to like watch Adrena and Dre fall in love. And it's just so fun to watch that happen.
It is.
You know, because you can see the progression. And it's just fun to see that. And it's fun to see like different aspects of your spouse played in different ways.
Yes.
You know, like it's just fun.
If we haven't said it enough, it is so much fun.
It's so much fun.
10 out of 10.
Do recommend. But also it can make really impactful, strong moments, and also just really funny moments. And I think on that note, I think that about wraps things up.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So thanks for joining us tonight. What do you think about player romance, everybody? Have you played with your partner? Has anything romance naturally happened? Tell us all about it, because my little predictable and cliche Hallmark movie loving heart really wants to know all the deets. We're so glad you're here. Well met, friends, and we'll see you on the morrow. See you next week.
Bye. I got like the goosebumps. My heart was pounding again. I was like, this is so weird.